One Nation will this week launch a bold new push to block former ISIS fighters and their supporters from returning to Australia. Pauline Hanson will introduce a new bill to Parliament today, which she says will strengthen powers to cancel or refuse passports and toughen bail laws for terrorism charges. But it comes as experts question the legality of the proposed legislation, with critics saying it will last about 30 seconds in the High Court. For more, we're joined by Dr. Danielle Ireland-Piper, Associate Professor at the ANU National Security College. Good to have you with us. So, can the government ban ISIS fighters from returning under international and constitutional law?
Yeah, good morning and thanks for having me. There's a plethora of really quite technical legal issues when it comes to restricting the return of a citizen, and also in relation to the suspension or cancellation of passports. But the three key issues is that it's unlikely to be constitutional or permissible at international law to permanently ban a citizen from returning to their own country. The other issue is that, one of the reasons Australia is a relatively peaceful country is that we have rule of law. Our constitution is the overriding document, the blueprint of the nation, and that says that only a court can punish. So there are very technical issues around a parliament dictating to a court what the outcome of a case would be. And then there's an overarching issue also of efficacy. Under international law, Australia can regulate its citizens overseas. Many of our criminal laws apply to Australians when they're outside the country. And in some ways, that comes with an obligation to then to take legal action when our citizens are behaving illegally or engaging in criminal conduct. So in some ways, there's a moral responsibility on Australia to bring people back here to prosecute if they have engaged in criminal conduct.
So if this bill is unconstitutional, can it still be passed through Parliament if she gets enough support, Pauline Hanson?
That's a really good question. So basically the way it works is if a majority of parliamentarians in the House of Representatives and then a majority of parliamentarians in the Senate vote for a bill, it will pass. The only body that can decide whether a law is unconstitutional is our courts, the High Court of Australia or the Federal Court of Australia, sometimes the state courts. So what would happen is if enough people supported this bill, it would get through and then someone would have to challenge that law. In order to challenge that law, you have to have what's called standing, and that generally means that you are impacted or affected by the law. So it's true, sometimes we have unconstitutional laws sitting on our books until they're challenged, as we've seen in recent times, for example, in New South Wales with the protest laws.
Well, let's touch on that for a second, Danielle, because Labor has warned that blocking citizens could risk Australia's ability to deport foreign criminals here. What's your take on that?
Many countries cooperate on international crime cooperation, and in some ways it requires an element of good faith and goodwill. So if we're not willing to accept our citizens when they return, that could compromise our agreements with other countries around deportation and extradition and other types of crime cooperation. So, yeah, there's a number of issues here. It's very unlikely that you can permanently prohibit a citizen from returning, and also cancellation of passports raises a whole bunch of issues if a person has not yet committed a crime.
Danielle, really appreciate your time. We'll follow that today as well. Here's Nat.
Thanks.